Good morning and welcome to the Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Talking about religious personalities is a dicey business, but then the scholarship, research, and the current modes require that we study them. And it's not to criticize, but it's to enhance the respect and veneration for these religious icons. Now we respect Sita, and most of the people hate Draupadi, and that all is done for all the wrong reasons. I perceive them as precursors of two major trends of the modern century, and I'm sure they'll be remembered by the new generations as such. We always go and accept the norms of the old, not with ourselves, but in relation to the people who lived at that age. And if we look at the Indian myths and epics, basically all myths and epics, they stretch back for thousands of years. And their roots lie in the prehistory. They're not historical, they're prehistorical. There was no written document at that time. However, the Indian mythologies have a base. Although they are prehistorical, the fact that there are certain documents like Gita, Puranas, Vedas show their validity. So it's no wonder that these myths and epics travel down the ages and they are reinterpreted according to the value of each age. But what happens is that we don't change our perception according to the most recent reinterpretation. We go by the interpretation at the original time. If you look at the Indian society as a whole, it has grown over the years more and more patriarchal. At one time it was matriarchal. And when it became patriarchal, especially in the last century, women and heroines in our myths and epics, and by extension in our own life, real life, are largely interpreted and judged according to the values of that society, that is patriarchal society. And because we have now entered an era of female consciousness, these traditional judgments are questioned, and they should be. Perhaps that is why the mythical and the religious characters who were so popular have regained their popularity, and most of the epics, if you have seen in the Bollywood films, are female-centric. Look at Padmavat. The whole story has been recast. And we should not forget that when women tell their own story in their own voice, with their own words and their understanding, this ceases to be misunderstood. The two characters have experienced misjudgment. As a matter of three, Sita, Gandhari, Draupadi. Gandhari is admired as pativrata, a revered quality in the patriarchal society, not in the matriarchal. In matriarchal society, she was the ruler, basically. In patriarchal society, if she is pativrata, devoted to her husband, blindly devoted, she is to be revered, because then she'll go to heaven. Now, she blindfolded herself since her husband was blind, and she did not enjoy the sight he was incapable of enjoying. Now, could we evaluate her act differently once we stop gazing through the patriarchal tinted glasses? Would it not have been better for her to keep her eyes open and function as Dhritarashtra's eyes, pointing out the problems in the kingdom, help him deal with them? Perhaps the battle of Kurukshetra would not have happened. Now, Draupadi, on the other hand, is traditionally frowned upon as being the opposite of Pativrata. And of course, she could not be Pativrata. She had 5 husbands. Of course, it was common for most princely men at that time to have many wives. But that's a different matter altogether. However, people don't take into account that Draupadi did not want 5 husbands. She had married Arjun. She was forced into this arrangement by Kunti's declaration that the brothers must share what they have brought to the house equally. But was she a commodity to be shared? Here, Yudhishthir failed as Dharamraj. Since he was Dharamraj, he should have said, "No, mom, you are wrong. You have not opened your eyes. See, she is not a commodity. She is not a thing. She can't be shared. She is my younger sister-in-law." But then Draupadi followed the stringent rule where she was a wife to each husband for 1 year at a time. But perhaps the most misunderstood character is that of Sita. And that also for the similar patriarchal reasons. She is revered, it's true. And generations of the girls have been advised to be like Sita. But why? Let's see. People constantly bring up Sita's Pativrata nature, her devotion to Ram, her ability to endure hardships weakly. They ignore her positive points, her courage, her willpower, her spirit of adventure, which impels her to accompany Ram to the forest. Her willpower and a belief that she is right enables her to stand up against Ravana, even though all alone in Lanka. Otherwise, a woman who is kidnapped away from home, from her husband, from anybody, would lose all courage. But she can face Ravana. As a result, in spite of all his strength and magical abilities, Ravana doesn't and cannot harm her. I personally feel that he is awed, he is afraid of her inner strength. Now, her courage and her willpower has been ignored. And this was her willpower. This was her courage that helped her bring up her 2 sons by herself after she is abandoned the forest. Wasn't she the first single mother? The precursor of the single motherhood nowadays, which we say, wow, she's brave, she's single mother. And she was much more braver. And though Sita indeed loves him even after Ram sends her to the forest, when at the end of Ramayana he asks her to undergo Agni Pariksha to prove her innocence, she refuses, like a feminist. She says no, and he calls upon Mother Earth to take her away. She chooses to give up her happy life with Ram and her 2 sons because she believes what she is going to do by merging herself with her Mother Earth is right. She respects her husband, yes. She loves him, yes. But she respects herself more. And that's what I'm always talking about, self-respect, self-esteem, self-compassion. If she had gone to Ayodhya with Ram, she would have been demeaned. But here she retains her identity, her individuality. I hope that today we men and women both will understand the power of Sita's final action in Ramayana for what it is. But we don't admire her for that. We always say she was Pativrata. She was a woman, a strong woman, the precursor of women's freedom, the precursor of single motherhood, as Draupadi was the precursor of Me Too movement. In this age, Sita would be seen as the most famous single mother in the Indian history. And Draupadi, as I said, as the first Me Too warrior. The patriarchal storytelling needs to be challenged. because that concept, that thought, that idea has reduced these powerful women to mere props of the epics. They are not mere props. They exist by our right, by their own right. They have been pushed into corners. They have been trivialized. They have been maligned, blamed, forgotten. So, and I loved the novel, The Palace of Illusions by Devakarni, which retells the story of Draupadi and is a foreign, and then shows that she's a forerunner of this trend of the feminist forensics. And that's why when Bollywood came up with Padmavati and Manikarna and even Aurangzeb's sister Jahara Begum's Takat, that was retelling the human aspect of these women who were brave. And we don't understand. They were nice. They were great. But then the question arises, should we tell our daughters to be nice? If you are a medieval detective putting pieces of information together and moving layers of misinformation, prejudice, then you would see that these women come out of the shadows as women who were revolutionaries in thought, who were revolutionaries in action. And they told that the daughters should be nice, but at the same time fierce. And the interesting parallels are there. So if Sita would be viewed in the future, as I said, as the most famous single mother in the history, like Draupadi would be deemed to be the first Me Too heroine. And that is because the treatment meted to them was not appropriate. Now, if you remember, Skandi tells Draupadi Panchali, and that's very telling. He says, the power of man is like a bull's charge, while the power of a woman moves aslant like a serpent seeking its prey. That was when she had said that I will not tie my hair unless I wash them with the blood of Dusashan. Now he may not, Skandi may not be right, and he was not right, about the animal equivalence. But at least now, thanks to the warriors of the new generation, the power of women through myth and history is becoming visible and audible. Now you might say that Draupadi did not object, she should have objected. But don't forget, she also had the ideal of being an obedient daughter-in-law before her. And she was a product of the patriarchal society. However, she did one thing very great. She was a person who could rebuke all the elders in the court when she was to be undressed. And she made Bhisham Pitama, Vidur, bow their heads. That force of character has been negated by our storytellers and by the myth makers, as was the story of Sita, willpower and courage and assertion of her self-esteem ignored. These factors are in fact crucial as the changing modes of society are there. People have got to regard these women in their own right as revolutionaries, as women who did great job of asserting their femininity as well as their individuality. We always say the suffragettes were the beginners of the feminism. No. It was Sita and Draupadi who were the original propagators of feminist movement. And they lived it. They lived it to the full. So historically they have been treated as nice, cozy, decent people for Sita, and outspoken, brash, but obedient daughter-in-law for Draupadi. Both concepts have got to change. The future generations are going to see them differently. As I said, they are going to be viewed as revolutionaries in their own right. Of course, revolution the concept has to change from time to time. Even a small movement in a tightly bound social order, and don't forget, she was a princess. She was a queen. She could not outlandishly break all the bonds. That would have been terrible. That would have been a cataclysm. So she, within the confines of the system, modulated her rebellion in a very proper manner, obedient, yes, but self-assertive at the same time. And self-assertiveness and self-esteem are the basic ingredients of feminist movement, humanistic movement. That's why I call Sita the first feminist, the first single mother. And I call Draupadi the mother of Me Too movement. And the future generations would see them as such, you would say. Thank you.